Our deep dive today is the most famous name in polling giving the president a raw deal. Fairly or not, when Gallup speaks, it can steer the political conversation and have an outsized impact on the conventional wisdom of the presidential race. But ever since Gallup began to compete with the robo-pollsters by launching their own daily tracking poll, detractors, including myself, have raised serious concerns with their methodology, which they say has shown the president underperforming compared to other national polls. And every poll, slight variations matter. How many people you talk to, even how you word a question, even question order. The Huffington Post did a review of Gallup polls of the president over the past year. And what it found was that Gallup consistently found Obama with a lower job approval rating than that of the other top 6 organizations using similar methodologies. The president's average job rating among the first 6 organizations, 47%. The average job rating among Gallup polls, 44.4%. Why? Well, mystery pollster over at Huffington Post claims it's because Gallup measures responses from non-whites differently than other polling organizations. The method of tweaking numbers to account for demographics is known as weighting, a way to account for various groups that make up the country as a whole. And here's how it works. Say you're polling an area where the population of men and women, according to the census, is split 50-50, but 3/4 of your responses happen to come from women on your day of calling. Well, in calculating the results, you would boost the importance of the men's answers and reduce the women's answers to reflect the 50-50 split. Pollsters do it for a number of factors, but in this case, where we're concerned, it's about race. According to the survey, the way Gallup weights its polls for race doesn't quite match up with the latest census numbers from the government. For instance, over the first 3 months of 2012, Gallup's polling data was weighted to represent a population that's 11.3% African American, short of the government census figures, which show the actual breakdown is 12.1%. Gallup's polls reflected a Hispanic population of 12.4%, but the census target was 13.7%. Why is this significant? Because these are the types of voters that support the president in big numbers. Gallup itself found that in May, he polled at 54% among Hispanics, which is actually kind of low to where he is now, but 90% among African Americans. So taking any of those voters out of the mix can change the presidential horse race numbers dramatically, alter the perception of this race. All right now I'm joined by the 2 men best equipped to discuss this topic. Frank Newport is the editor-in-chief of the Gallup poll. Mark Blumenthal is the Huffington Post senior polling editor, founder of Pollster.com, and the man behind that analysis that we just did. So, Frank, my friend, let me start with you. What do you say to this criticism and this critique of your methodology from Mr. Blumenthal?
Well, first of all, I'm glad we're talking about this, Chuck. It's a very complex process. As you attempted to illuminate there, you'd probably need about an hour to explain it.
I was just going to say, we could use a special report, yes.
That's right. But it's a very complex process, so it's probably good that we're all looking at it. But, you know, it is so complex that we certainly think that race is not the only variable involved. Actually, today, when we're rating polls, probably the most complex thing is cell phones. We pioneered here at interviewing up to 400 out of every 1,000 interviews are based on cell phones, and we have to weight that. We have to weight age. We have to weight education. We have to weight gender. All of these are correlated with presidential views, political views, as well as race. Now, that Huffington Post piece seemed to kind of be mono-focused on race, but for our methodologists and statisticians to adjust these numbers statistically, we have to take into account more than just that one number. And actually, our assessments based on over 100,000 interviews shows that our targets for blacks and for Hispanics were actually closer than what you showed there. But you have to put it all into the mix, avoid measurement error, avoid design effects, which come. We could weight blacks up to be 30% of the population if we wanted to, but our methodologists make the decision that when we balance all of those factors out in the weighting, we end up what we think is a very good, solid sample of the American public.
Okay. Mark, I understand that, but how race, he says it sounds like what Frank was saying is that we're making it too much of a factor, but I have to say, in these horse race numbers, it seems to be the way that we've polarized, and we saw the Pew analysis. I mean, race is dividing on political lines in a way we've not seen in a long time.
Right. It's certainly one of many factors that a pollster needs to adjust. I mean, this is a problem facing not just Gallup, but all polls. Right. That the low response rates means that we have a harder time finding voters and Americans in urban areas, which means it's harder to find not only non-whites but younger and less well educated. And and the way that we weight all of those up is important to getting accurate results. Race, I think, is the most important of those because, as you showed, the biggest differences on political attitudes come when you slice Americans by racial and Hispanic groups.
And Frank, I mean, that seems to be. I mean, when you look at the exit polls, I mean, it's a pretty simple. You talk to the two campaigns, it's a pretty simple math game for them. If it's 70, at one point I think you had 78% of your registered voter population as white, which it hadn't been for a decade in some of your polling about a month ago. You know, it was 76%, I believe, last time, and there's some expectation it could be 74, 73. That can alter the numbers in a giant way, can it not?
Yeah, race is clearly an important factor. I don't think that on average we certainly have the white population that high, but there's no question that race is an important factor, but so are these other variables. You know, age is highly related to the political context as well. So is education, and so is gender, and so is having a cell phone only or having a landline. All of these are very important factors. Our statisticians and methodologists who've been doing this for a very long time take all of those into account, very complex process, and try to put our samples together, weight them in what we call post-stratification weighting that gives the best overall sample that we can come up with based on, as I agree with what Mark Blumenthal just said, is when we basically do our interviews, all pollsters, we underrepresent certain groups and we have to give them a statistical oomph when we weight the data.
Do you wish you weren't daily tracking?
Oh, no, we love daily tracking, and the major contribution we're making here, Chuck, which I think is important, is large sample sizes. Every day when we report a number, it's based on over 3,000 interviews with registered voters. We provided the public demographic analysis based on 9,000 interviews over a 3-week rolling average every Monday morning. So I think we're really able to give people a very stable picture of what's happening in the race, as opposed to other polls. We saw one last week where Obama was ahead by 13 points, which was clearly an outlier, but by contributing daily tracking with very large sample sizes, we think at Gallup that we're making a real contribution to trying to understand the trajectory, the trend line of this race.
It's funny you bring up the outlier, Bloomberg, and our friend there, Joanne Selzer. You know, we had some criticism of that in first read, and she responded to it. And one of the criticisms, we talked about this issue, the biggest difference in that poll and why Obama had a bigger lead there than in other polls, again, was the race breakdown. She only had the white population, I believe she had it under 70%, which we hadn't seen either.
Right. Now, one credit to Ann Selzer and other polls, including NBC, Wall Street Journal, is that at the end of the survey, every time you release the results, you can see the racial, all the demographic.
We put it all out there.
And you can see what the pollster has, whether they've hit the targets. And I think Gallup is fabulous in disclosing all sorts of things and helping my story, but you can't see for those 3,000 interviews every day and those 6,000 or 7,000 a week, what they were weighted to.
You know, there's two other things I want to get to, and again, I'm going to run out of time, and my producer's going to be mad at me. But Frank, let me ask you this: when it comes to weighting, do you wish you could weight by party?
No, we don't. That's an old canard.
That's another
Chuck.
one.
You may remember, the good old days when that used to be the topic du jour that I would talk about with people like yourself. No, because that's a moving target. I mean, a lot of political posters will tell you we know exactly what party ID will be like on Election Day, but I'm not sure they do. The way exit poll measures party ID may be different than the way we do it, so we're weighting apples to oranges. So we've stayed away from the effort to try to weight to some unknown moving target on party ID.
And let me ask you this: why not release multiple results? I've been an advocate, and I can't talk my pollsters into doing it. I can't talk my other colleagues into doing it. And Mark and I have discussed this. Why not release multiple results? Meaning, this is what your results would have looked like in 2000 with the 2008 exit poll, the 2010, what we think it could be. Why not release 3 versions every day?
I think that's an excellent idea. We've done some things like that, but you're absolutely right. What you're talking about there is scenarios, Chuck. What if this? What if that? What if that? I think that's an excellent way to do it. We may do more of it this year. Thanks for the suggestion.
And Mark, I mean, do you think more of us should do that, or would we actually confuse the situation?
I'm sure we would. We do a good job confusing people either way. But I think it's important for us to see both. If a result is different, it helped for us to be able to look at that Bloomberg poll and see what the Democrat-Republican mix was, what the racial mix was, which the education
transparency
mix was.
Is what you're asking for.
Yes.
Transparency, and that is one thing. Frank, you guys are always very helpful at giving everything out. No one can say that. Mr. Newport, a pleasure as always. Mr. Blumenthal, thank you. I'm sure we'll be talking more about this. All right.